Hello, followers. Few criminal cases in Brazil's recent history have managed to shock public opinion as much as today's case. A woman who, behind a calculated smile and an apparently perfect life, hid a dark plot of obsession and revenge that culminated in a crime that devastated an entire family. What drives someone to transform a simple breakfast into a stage of terror? And it's this question that leads us to dive into the criminal mind of Amanda Partata. Followers, I'd like to announce some news here on the channel for you. It's a new email I created for the channel, which is written here below. And I created this email for two purposes. For anyone who wants to make commercial contact for a partnership with the channel, or if the channel is to make some kind of announcement, something like that. And to create a Pix key where you can make a spontaneous contribution to help improve the quality of the channel. If each follower who watches me contributes just $1 each one, you won't lose almost anything, and it will help me a lot. Always remembering that it's a voluntary contribution. Help if you can and if you want to. And if you can't, your like and your comment are also very welcome as a way to help. And now, let's get to today's case. It was a quiet morning in Goiânia. The date was December 17th, 2023. The sun was slowly rising over the streets of the neighborhood where Leonardo Pereira Alves lived with his family. For many, it would be a Sunday like any other. However, for Leonardo and his family, it would be a morning that would tragically mark their lives forever. Leonardo was a 54-year-old man, known for his generosity and welcoming spirit. And on that day, December 17th, he opened the doors of his home for a family gathering. And on the other end of this gathering was Amanda Partata, his son's ex-girlfriend. It was an innocent gesture, but one loaded with hidden intentions. Amanda, 31 years old, had a plan that would change everything forever. The course of that family. Amanda arrived early at Leonardo's family home. It wasn't even 8 o'clock in the morning yet. Dressed modestly, she wore a smile that masked her inner tension. She brought a basket of homemade bread, cakes, and small jars of juice. The basket was wrapped in a decorated, fragrant cloth. Hospitable. Leonardo welcomed Amanda into his home, and although he knew her relationship with his son had ended tumultuously, he believed that this breakfast was a gesture of reconciliation. Amanda went to the kitchen where she set the table, and Leonardo called his mother, Lucia, his 16-year-old daughter, and his wife for breakfast. As well as his father, everything seemed perfect, and Amanda kept the conversation light, avoiding any talk about her relationship with Leo. Just to add a note here, followers, Leo is Leonardo's son. Since father and son have the same name, I'll refer to the son as Leo throughout this video, okay? But moving on. Amanda moves around the kitchen a lot with an unsettling calmness. Her movements were meticulously calculated, and her eyes were constantly scanning the room. And without anyone noticing, Amanda took small vials out of her purse containing substances she used to poison the food. Meanwhile, Lucia, Leonardo's mother, his father, João Alves, and the other family members were in the living room with the son. The choice of juices was not random. Amanda knew that the whole family loved natural drinks. In addition, she put small doses of the poison in the bread and cakes further disguising the presence of the substances. When she finished, she joined the family in the living room, keeping a relaxed tone. Around 8:30 in the morning, everyone sat down at the table. Leonardo, always courteous, served the juices in tall glasses and even complimented Amanda, the Viper, for her kindness. Lucia and João also thanked her, suspecting nothing. Marta, Leonardo's wife, and their 16-year-old daughter did the same. Amanda watched every movement and smiled as the family members enjoyed that breakfast. With each sip, Amanda felt more relieved. However, João didn't eat or drink anything because he was diabetic. The fact is, followers, that Amanda knew the poison would take some time to take effect, but she trusted that the dose was enough to achieve her goal. It didn't take long for the first symptoms to start appearing. Leonardo's daughter posted on social media that her father had eaten food bought from a famous establishment in the city before he lost his life, as he had vomited a lot for hours. Mrs. Lucia, Leonardo's mother, was even admitted to the same hospital as her son and lost her life shortly after him with the same symptoms. The bakery removed from circulation all products from the same batch of dessert consumed by the family, but the products were inspected by agents and there was nothing wrong with them. The police state that Amanda stayed at the house between 9 a.m. and noon, and as soon as she left, she received a voice message from Leonardo saying that he was feeling sick and that his mother was too. Since Amanda was pregnant, she should go to a hospital. The police chief strongly emphasized the fact that the victims were still very concerned about Amanda's health. The pain experienced by Leonardo and Mrs. Lucia kept getting worse and worse. And after some time, both of them began to experience vomiting and diarrhea. They went to the hospital, Santa Barbara, in the capital, while Amanda was returning to the city of Itumbiara, where she lived. Leonardo's teenage daughter and his wife, Marta, were also hospitalized with the same symptoms, but they recovered and were discharged from the hospital sometime later. Well, followers, Leonardo was declared dead right there at the scene where everything happened. Lucia was still rushed to the hospital along with her granddaughter and daughter-in-law, and the police immediately began collecting evidence, especially from the food and drinks. And as we already know, followers, justice is blind, but it can see in the dark. And this is where the investigation takes a clever turn. Amanda took part in that breakfast. She ate, drank, and was the only person who didn't get sick from any of it. Because of this, Amanda was taken to the police station to give a formal statement, and she contradicted herself during her testimony. She claimed that she prepared everything, the food and the juices, but didn't explain what ingredients she used. Well, followers, as events unfolded, Donna Lucia also ended up losing her life because of consuming the breakfast provided by Amanda. The victims' bodies were properly examined, and in the preliminary analyses, toxic substances were found in them. The symptoms presented were consistent with poisoning by a chemical compound found in pesticides. And it was this discovery that completely changed the course of the investigation, making Amanda the main suspect of having committed this crime. At the police station, the investigators pressured Amanda with the evidence. She remained calm, but began to show signs of nervousness when confronted with the test results. At a crucial moment in the interrogation, one of the agents mentioned that the bottles used to store the poison had been found in the trash can near the kitchen. Amanda then tried to change her story, claiming that the bottles weren't hers and that they could have been left there by someone else. However, the fingerprints found on the containers were hers, thus solidifying the suspicions against her. It was around noon when Amanda was arrested on charges of murder and attempted murder. The rest of the family was in critical condition at the hospital, and the tragedy had left a permanent mark on the city's neighborhood. The morning of the crime was just the beginning of a series of developments that would lead to a full understanding of the events and the pursuit of justice. Therefore, at that moment, there was a question that remained in people's minds, which was the following: what could drive a person to commit such a cruel act against those who once welcomed them? And these questions, followers, I will try to explain to you one by one. From now. Now let's do a mental flashback, followers, so we can better understand the past of this woman named Amanda Partata. She was always described as someone with an intense and ambitious personality. She grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in the city of Goiânia, in a family that struggled to remain financially stable. An only child, Amanda showed from an early age a behavior that teachers described as determined, but in retrospect, many would see as manipulative and obsessive. Followers, I want to make an important observation here about the fact that Amanda Partata was an only child. Of course, this doesn't happen to all only children, but it does to a good percentage of them. At least that's my opinion. If anyone disagrees, please, the comment section is there for us to talk about it, okay? I believe the following: an only child receives an excess of love from one side, given by both the father and the mother, and a lack of love from the other side, where he is rejected by people outside the family precisely because he is an only child, for not having a sibling to defend him. So I think of it this way: this probably happened to Amanda, just as it happens to many others. And the only child certainly is not going to want to be restricted only to the love of their parents. They will look for the chance to be loved by other people as well. And then there will be a major conflict, an existential conflict in their life. I'm not trying to say by this that every only child would do what Amanda did. Just as I'm also not trying to say that Amanda committed this criminal act because she is an only child. But I would like everyone to pay attention from now on, if you get the chance, that what I just said here has some basis. All right, followers? Let's continue with the case then. At school, Amanda was an average student, but she stood out for her ability to influence classmates and teachers. It was common for her to convince other students to do favors for her, from sharing their snacks to helping with schoolwork. A former childhood classmate recalled in a later interview that Amanda always seemed to be planning 2 steps ahead. Her relationship with her parents was tense. Her father was a truck driver and spent long periods away from home. He tried to balance his daughter's emotional needs. There are reports that Amanda lied to avoid punishment or to get what she wanted. A striking episode involved a false accusation against a neighbor whom Amanda accused of stealing a toy. And this was a lie just to get attention. During adolescence, Amanda showed clear signs of possessive behavior. Relationships with friends often ended in conflict, and she had difficulty accepting rejection or criticism. A former friend reported that when Amanda was excluded from a party, she spread destructive rumors about the group that had left her out. In high school, Amanda also began to develop a peculiar skill for manipulating situations to her advantage. In group projects that Amanda participated in, she would take credit for other people's work that wasn't hers. Teachers tried to confront her, but she always managed to divert attention from the problem. It was during this time that Amanda became interested in chemical substances. Amanda enrolled in a law program at a private college, but her interest in psychology was also evident. She told her friends that she understood the human mind better than any professor. Some classmates admired her self-confidence, while others considered her arrogant. It was at university that Amanda had her first significant romantic relationships. Her first boyfriend, named Pedro, described the relationship as intense and suffocating. Marcelo, who was Amanda's second boyfriend, ended their relationship in an even more turbulent and dramatic way, saying that she was very jealous and quite controlling. He explained that her jealousy and controlling nature were the main reasons for the breakup. He also said that Amanda spread rumors that Marcelo was cheating on her, and because of that, he became socially isolated. During college, Amanda began to take a deeper interest in chemical substances. She often asked detailed questions to students from biological sciences and pharmacy courses about compounds that could be used to slow down or paralyze biological processes. A classmate reported that Amanda seemed fascinated by certain substances that could go unnoticed in small doses. This interest culminated in a troubling situation at a crowded college party where Amanda offered refreshing drinks to a group of friends. Shortly after, they began to feel unwell, experiencing dizziness and nausea. Although there was no proof, many suspected that Amanda had tampered with the drink. Years went by and Amanda met Leo, Leonardo's son. He graduated in medicine, or a relationship with Amanda, which, according to acquaintances, was full of ups and downs. At first, Leonardo's family believed Amanda was a hardworking and caring woman, but over time, signs of possessive and manipulative behavior emerged. On Amanda's part, these became evident. A young man who preferred to remain anonymous described Amanda as extremely jealous and paranoid. It was clear that this relationship was going from bad to worse, and that's exactly why it ended. After the breakup, Amanda seemed to become more unstable. She would send constant messages to Leo and his family, ranging from pleas for reconciliation to veiled threats. Some messages suggested that she would not let things end like that. The family started to avoid her, but Amanda kept finding ways to get close to Leo and his relatives. During this period, she began frequenting pharmacies and chemical supply stores. Later records showed that Amanda purchased small amounts of pesticides, the same ones that were detected in the crime. A former co-worker also spoke about Amanda's plans for revenge. Amanda was articulate and presented herself as a successful woman, and she seemed to be the ideal woman for Leo. However, as the relationship progressed, signs began to appear that Amanda's intentions went beyond a healthy romantic relationship. Leo started to notice these problematic behaviors in Amanda. She demanded total control over his actions, isolating Leo from friends and family, typical symptoms of abusers, who want to have the person they desire all to themselves. Jealousy was constant and arguments were frequent. For Amanda, the relationship was not just an emotional connection, but an assertion of power. When the relationship ended, Amanda could not accept being rejected. Her sense of control was shaken, and that made her act the way she did. Shortly before the end of the relationship, Amanda announced that she was pregnant. For the Alves family, this news was met with a mix of surprise and hope. Despite the conflicts, the idea of a grandchild brought a possibility of unity. However, the pregnancy was discovered to be a lie when Leo insisted on taking her to a prenatal appointment. Thus, Amanda was confronted, and her relationship with Leo came to a definitive end. For her, this revelation not only destroyed her chances of manipulating her ex-boyfriend, but also exposed her emotional fragility in front of his family. The lie about the pregnancy became a catalyst for violence. Humiliated and rejected, Amanda began to see that family as an obstacle to be eliminated. Human behavior specialists analyzed Amanda's case, and in doing so, a profile was constructed for her. Amanda had a narcissistic profile with obsessive traits. For people with this profile, the desire for control is paramount. It is just as important as the need for validation. When both are threatened, the reaction can be destructive. Amanda wanted to ensure that her presence would be remembered. The idea of simply disappearing from Leo's life was unbearable for her. Amanda wanted to turn his rejection into an event for herself, something that would leave marks forever. That's why she chose poisoning for this act. It's not something violent, it's silent, meticulous, and it allows the perpetrator to remain at the crime scene without arousing suspicion. Well then, followers, after being rejected by Leo, Amanda spent weeks thinking about what she would do. She planned the crime she was going to commit because she wasn't going to let her boyfriend's rejection slide. She researched chemical substances that could be used discreetly and lethally. Amanda also studied Leo's family's habits, looking for the right moment to strike. And she chose a breakfast as her strategy. She knew the family would be relaxed and trusting, not suspecting that any threat could come from her. Besides that, the pleasure of bringing food she had prepared herself reinforced the idea of reconciliation. Amanda also thought about the details that would come afterward. What would justify her presence there? What would she do to escape these accusations? Although Amanda's crime is often described as premeditated, there is an underlying emotional element that cannot be ignored. The desire for revenge did not arise solely from romantic rejection, but also from years of accumulated frustrations and resentments. Amanda saw herself as a woman who deserved more from life, but who was constantly challenged and underestimated. In later interviews, people close to Amanda described how she often held on to resentments for long periods. For her, the act of forgiving was seen as a sign of weakness. Thus, each unresolved conflict became an emotional wound fueling her vengeful behavior. The crime took place on December 17, 2023, a date that was not chosen by chance. Amanda knew that the approach of Christmas made the family environment more sensitive, and she wanted to maximize the emotional impact of her actions, ensuring that this day could never be forgotten. It's no coincidence, followers, that the choice of commemorative dates for violent acts is a phenomenon frequently observed in cases of revenge. Experts point out that this happens because these dates already carry a strong emotional meaning, making the impact of such actions even more lasting. For Amanda, turning a joyful event into a tragic one was part of her attempt to control the narrative and ensure her message would be heard. During the interrogations, Amanda tried to justify her actions in various ways. At first, she claimed that she had no intention of hurting anyone and that it was all just an accident. And if any follower has ever heard of an accidental poisoning, let me know in the comments, because I never have. And as time went by, the evidence against Amanda kept piling up. That's when she thought of Plan B and changed her story. Amanda blamed her ex-boyfriend and his family for her behavior, claiming that she was always treated as an intruder in the family and that she just wanted to be heard. And honestly, I'd also like to be an intruder in a family that would accept having breakfast together, that would open the doors of their house to me. To me, in a cordial way, just like Mr. Leonardo did with Amanda, right? Sorry for this outburst, but I have to say it. I have to say it because this girl, I think she has sawdust in her brain. That's the only explanation, man, for her to say something like that. No one turned their back on her in that family. On the contrary, they welcomed her in an affectionate way. Even after everyone knew who she was, what her relationship with Leo was like, and especially about the fake pregnancy, everything. She was still warmly welcomed, invited to have breakfast at their house so they could reconnect. And then she goes and does something like this. Come on. Amanda's justifications were rejected both by the investigators and by the general public. At the police station, Amanda maintained her calculated demeanor. She claimed that she had prepared breakfast with the intention of reconciling with the family she had victimized, and that she had no idea what was going to happen in that house. When questioned about the presence of small bottles found in the trash can near the crime scene, Amanda tried to dodge the subject, saying she didn't know how they ended up there. And with so many contradictions, in this case, on Amanda's part, she received